Wow. Thank you, Liz, for that beautiful, beautiful movie. So moving. I will try not to cry while we do this Q&A. As a mother, it hit me. Yes, you can take that off.
Can I just interrupt and take a picture of the audience? Because my family couldn't be here. Everyone wave. Nice, thank you.
I thought all the movies were so intimate, very personal stories, and I think my first question to you is, where did your inspiration come from for this piece?
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys all coming to see this film. This is the first public showing. Is that right? First public showing, and so I literally was texting my husband, what if nobody comes? It's like, I've seen it. Can I walk out? Can I? But yeah, I am the mother of 2 daughters who are now in college. And after my first baby was born, they're very close in age too. And I sunk. And I had no idea what it was. And my husband had no idea what it was. And it was just the hardest time of my life. And then my second baby came, and that again. And I remember just laying in bed with these 2 babies and just not knowing, not being able physically, I don't know if anyone's experienced depression, but just not being able to pick your head up, not be able to get dressed, not be able to do, normal functions. And my husband traveled a lot, so there were a lot of layers. But I went to film school, and I was working as a producer, in film production, commercials and stuff. And it just kind of dawned on me at one point, it's like, wow, what is this? And it just kind of started that way as kind of a hobby almost. I should start documenting some of this. And then started talking to people about it. And that's when it became evident that that's what I was experiencing, what other people were experiencing, and so I just wanted to delve deeper.
Well, thank you. Thank you for doing that. I think it's a very important movie. How long did it then take you to make it?
So, if anyone is making films, I did not do it the right way. It took 9 years to finish this. As you can see by the really crappy footage sometimes, it's like old SD footage. And it was all just kind of scrimping and saving, very low budget, no budget, friends, family, all that kind of stuff. But part of that was, I would kind of start filming, I would do a little bit, but, I was raising 2 kids at the time. And I was still, it's like what Paula says, she had no idea that she was getting a nightmare that lasted 7 years for her. And so mine was kind of getting there. And so it was just hard to finish it. Plus, I had to work, for paid jobs. And so this always got put on the back burner, always on the back burner. So yeah, 9 years.
That's incredible. Thank you for persisting.
Crazy.
I'm really taken by the perspective of the male perspective in the movie, because I think it's really obviously rare that we hear that. So how did you find him to become a part of your film?
I was researching people who had gone through it, and he's kind of a well-known restaurateur in Seattle, and so his name kind of kept coming up in my research. And I eventually reached out to him, and talked to him about it. He was kind of publicly known in Seattle, and so there was kind of a lot of stuff about him at the time. The Seattle community really kind of came and helped him in the end. So yeah, just
not burning the village for him, but getting together.
In later. In the beginning, it really was hard for, especially. I obviously never got to meet Carol, but it sounds like for that amount of time that there was very little support for them. And, maybe partially because he is a foreigner, he's from Greece, that maybe didn't have the ability to kind of really look for help. I don't know. We kind of talked about that, but I mean, basically, he was doing the best he could. You know, he had a baby, and his mother, you know, and his wife just passed away. So my heart really went out to him. So in the beginning, there wasn't that much hope for them, for him and the baby.
Well, I'm glad that changed.
Yeah,
over time.
It did.
So, what were the challenges, the biggest challenges you faced? And I mean, obviously, time and money, which is for all filmmakers, I think, is the thing. But were there any other things that?
It's funny because I never really keyed into this until watching it this time. But Shoshana lists some signs and symptoms, and one of them was low self-esteem. Mm-hmm. And I think that was one of my biggest. It's like, who's going to want to watch a movie about this? I started as kind of a personal journey or a personal way to just kind of work through what I was going through. And so, but I never felt like it would be good enough to show anyone or who would care, and so it was very easy to put it on the back burner,
Well, it was an incredible piece of work, and you're really, really proud of it. So I think it's just so important.
That's so sweet. And I don't know if anyone got to see Mother's Day yesterday. So I talked to you as well.
Thank you. I did have just a few thoughts about, like, when did the animation come in to the picture?
So again, don't do a film this way. Basically, I shot, years ago, and just could never go back and shoot. And so the idea of the animation was to basically cover up mistakes, really. It was like basically to just, add, a little bit of the story in a different way. So
didn't seem like mistakes. I thought it was a very nice break, actually, and I thought it was lovely to be able to move a little bit into the imagination of oneself for a moment, because it's a heavy movie.
It's a heavy
movie. So that playfulness was really lovely to balance. I have another question, but if you guys have questions, I would love to hear. Yes.
It's such a beautiful movie, and I think so many people should see it. What are your plans for distribution?
My original plan kind of holds in it. I want a very grassroots kind of distribution. I'd love for it to get into some medical systems and some education systems so people can see it and learn from it, really. So that's kind of I haven't really gone as far as making a curriculum or anything for it yet, but it is starting to go to a couple of different health systems. So,
Where did you get the psychologists, and where did you find that wonderful woman who kept her journal? And also, I understand that you want to do this in a medical way, but this would be a really good film to put on streaming somehow or other, because there's so many women out there who would, watch it.
We can't hear you. Can't hear you.
She's saying that the film should be out on streaming too, because it's so accessible, and a lot of women need that film.
Thank you. And that actually speaks to my low self-esteem, to think about how I could possibly get it out there. But so the psychologist, when I was making this film, I was living in Berkeley, California, and so you could throw a rock and hit a psychologist, and so there were a lot of them around, friends of mine, actually. So, just knowing that community, the psychology and professional community there helped. And then Paula our kids were in preschool together, and by that point the kids were 4, probably, yeah. And we had a relationship. Neither one of us knew the other one was suffering. And it wasn't until I started to do this film that, someone, actually, it was another friend of mine said, "Hey, have you talked to Paula?" And so that's how I got her roped into it.
Yeah, in the back.
I'm curious, I don't know what to call it,
frames moving in the picture. Was that something else that you did in some way to cover mistakes now that you talked about that? Because in a weird way, and I am willing to say I'm someone who's experienced what your film is about, so thank you.
I'm sorry.
But it actually is a very effective tool for some of the ways that you feel when you're going through it. Because it does feel like things are just kind of having that little bit of a skip.
Yes.
So I just wondered if there was a reason you chose to do that, to cover your mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm glad to see you here and that you got through that. Yeah, it was to kind of meld, since I shot it on such old footage, I mean, old, what do you call it, format camera. It was a way just to kind of make it seem a little more cohesive. And when me and I later had brought in an editor, actually, you know, thanks to the pandemic, this is how this film finished. It was, you know, we were all holed up, and it's like, hey, I reached out to the editor and said, can you help me? And so we were brainstorming ways to kind of fix some of the transitions, and that felt very true to the way that you kind of feel sometimes. The glitchiness that can come.
That's excellent, excellent. Yes?
Yeah, I was just curious, as with Mr. Soukakos and seeing the perspective of the parent other than the birth parent and the value of that, I was wondering if you've had any intergenerational conversations in your process of making this film and speaking with mothers and women who maybe experienced this but didn't have the language. And I'm just, I'm curious about that journey personally or with the film.
You know, it is just heartbreaking to talk with with women who had gone through it, you know, back in the 40s, 30s, that just there wasn't a vocabulary about it at all. I mean, there's barely a vocabulary about it now, but you know, yeah, I think it's really poignant how people back then, especially. I mean, it's funny though, because when you start thinking about and researching and like looking at like literature, you know, I see literature like old, you know, women, not old women, sorry, I'm an old woman, how the descriptions of depression and new motherhood were kind of in literature, but you really don't get it until you have a different lens on it, I think, so. Yeah. Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question, yeah. In the back.
I just wanted to say, so it was a beautiful film, and I'm a caregiver to my mother who has dementia, and I just think this film is so important for the topic it covers, but also there are so many parallels for me as a caregiver, and a lot of caregiving responsibilities fall on women in our society, and we don't get the support we need from the people around us, even family. So I just really want to encourage you to just get it out there for people to see.
Thank you.